So several people have asked me for a recipe for my pulled noodles, and I thought since my kitchen is about to be demolished this week, I might as well get another video in before that happens and before I can't cook for several weeks, I think. So I'm going to do this. As you probably know, I don't really measure things, but I'm going to guess I'm putting maybe a cup and a half of flour in there. You could use any flour, all-purpose is fine. And I'm going to put about a tablespoon of gluten flour. That's easy to find. That's from Bob's Red Mill, but there are other brands, and maybe a tablespoon. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing the protein content way up on this. You could use bread flour and use a little of that. You can use any kind of flour really, but I think the addition of the gluten really knocks it up. And what is strange about this, I'm also going to use just a pinch of salt, regular sea salt. What's unusual about this is, unlike most doughs where you keep adding flour and then you're perfectly okay, this you want to add water to. And I know that sounds weird, and you keep adding water as you go along because you want a very wet dough that's going to rest covered in a little of olive oil, and then probably knead again, and then rest again, and then pull. So it takes a whole day really, but the actual work in it isn't very much except for this point. So this is where I wanted to show people what to do. I've also got a little bowl of water here to show you, and I'm just going to add this by hand. And I'm going to start working this, and what's going to happen is the glutens are going to form, glutens and gliadins and whatever, and it's the action of my doing this that's going to bring this together into a dough that's very unlike most pasta doughs, even though there's nothing else in it. And notice that I am not going to use lye. It does change the flavor a little bit. It changes the texture. It makes it a little slippery. I like the slipperiness. I don't really like that kind of alkaline flavor in there. I'll eat it, but you know, and I do make it, and I'll show you a couple of brands later if you want to see, but I don't think it's really necessary for your home noodle. You'll get something pretty good out of this. So this part, and it's going to sound weird, but you can see I'm just going to keep adding water, and actually as it develops into a dough, I'm going to keep adding more water. Now, you can do it right on the board, right? If you are not messy. I'm really messy, so I'm not going to even try that. I'm just doing it in a little bowl right now. And this will make, you know, a cup and a half will make us a big dinner serving for one or two smaller servings. That's what I'm thinking of, actually. If you want to make more, make more. It does not matter how much you add. You know, don't add a cup of the gluten flour. That will be unworkable, but a little bit will change the texture and make it very interesting. So this is going to take me about 5 minutes to work this in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this into a dough, then I'll show you what it's like in just a moment. Okay, so what I have here now is an extraordinarily stiff dough. You can see I've got to really squeeze down on it to make it work. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start not just kneading this, but pressing down on it, making it submit to my force by not just kneading it, but actually breaking it. You know that word, to break, B-R-A-K-E, usually done with bread baking, and it actually causes the texture, these protein chains to line up, and you get these lovely bouncy chewiness to it, and of course stretch is what we're after. And what I'm going to be doing here, so you'll see there's some flour in my hand here, and I just dip it in the water, and I'm just going to keep adding this to it. Now at this point, will sound a little absurd to you, but I'm going to knead this for half an hour. This is what I'm doing, and you can see it's already hot here this morning, but it's going to be 100 degrees here today. So this is, you know, decent exercise. Why not? So I'm going to come back in a half an hour and show you what this looks like, and then we'll let it rest for about 6 hours, and we'll come back and show you how to do the rest. Okie dokie, I'm back. I did, in fact, knead it for half an hour. And you can see the dough is much different. It's really soft and smooth now. I'm just going to oil my hands a little. Or rather, oil the dough a little. Flatten it out. I let it rest for maybe 10 minutes. And then I'm going to roll it. This is very untraditional. And you'll see people, make an enormous batch that will feed 100, and they'll then start dancing with it and swinging it around in the air. You don't need to do that, honestly. This is a batch for 1, which is kind of odd, but clearly if you're making for 2 or 4 or 5, just make more of it. It's easy. It's the same amount of labor. And I'm not really worried about getting this terribly even at this point, as you'll see. This is the before the resting stage. So what I'm gonna do is just make a flat oval like that. I'm gonna oil it nicely on top and bottom. Is there a thing as oiling badly? No. Anyway, I'm just gonna oil it up on both sides. And then I'm going to cut it. Okay, this is gonna seem sort of strange, but this is the preliminary cut. They're gonna be fairly thick. And these individual noodles are what I'm gonna stretch later. So I'll get maybe, I don't know, a tiny little batch out of this, but it's maybe, I'll get 2 dozen maybe. And don't worry if they're terribly even at this point, it's not gonna really matter. The oil actually changes the texture of it. It just sort of loosens it up. And as you'll see, at this point, after I cut it, I'm just gonna let these sit for 6 hours, okay? And that's basically it. I'm just gonna cut them up. I'm gonna cover them with plastic and let them rest, make sure no air gets at them or they will dry out. And in the meanwhile, I'm gonna go for a walk. So I'll see you in 6 hours. Okay, 6 hours has passed. I've walked about 10 miles and had a few glasses of wine. That's my next project, by the way. And I am ready to do some pulling. Water's boiling, and I'm just gonna pull these guys and throw them right into the pot, which is right here. I'm gonna start with one of these, and as you can see, it really is easy as pie. There's no reason to do a whole crazy dance with them. They're not gonna break. I could probably even get it longer. Let's see if we can do that. Just pull it this way. Well, a little bit. That's not bad. I'm gonna put that right in the water. And what I'm gonna do is these will only take, I don't know, 2 minutes to cook. And then I'm gonna shock them in cold water and keep them for later. See, that is just about as easy as a pulled noodle is to make. You really don't want your noodles that much longer than that anyway. And there was really nothing complicated about the whole process. And there's nothing more to it. I'm just gonna rinse these off and in cold water, and then make some soup out of them. That's basically it. Okay, I just tasted one, literally 2 minutes. I'm gonna take them over here, drain the whole shebang, and unlike any Italian noodle, I'm gonna put this in cold water. The shocking of the cold water brings out the chewiness in these. Not sure why, but it does. And I want you to take a look at these guys. This is just a magnificent noodle. That's it. Now to these, I would add a dashi stock or chicken stock or anything really, a deep pork broth, something like that. A few slices of meat, a vegetable or two, some bok choy, a little ginger, and these will be just a magnificent dinner. That's actually enough. There's a lot in there actually. And they're really nice and chewy too. I want you to see sort of how it has to chew down on them. Great texture.